The Ford CEO just screwed all truck buyers. If you were thinking you were going to get out there and get yourself a beautiful brand new pickup truck like these F-150s all lined up here all pretty and nice, then you might be waiting for a while. Or even more important, next year, 2025, they're promising to actually raise the MSRP. If you can believe it, and they're actually down on sales this half of the year versus last half of the year by almost 9%. This shouldn't be a real surprise when you're looking at a Super Duty right here, F350. It's a beautiful truck, but of course, lots of painted parts. We get the turbo diesel engine, and Super Duty, we have a 2024 F350 4x4 Crew, and it's a 6.7 with the 10-speed auto. Fair amount of options on this unit, and of course, it is going for a massive sticker of $124,000. Well, that's not cheap. But it is a Lariat, so that's what you're gonna get. But then we have another beautiful truck. Look at the new decal here. Definitely lots of trim levels like this where they're fairly upscale. This one here is painted parts, step guards right there. They put the little Ford decal on there. Of course, fold away, painted. This is a Lariat. So clearly this is going to be an upscale. It's going to carry an upscale tag. But that's the problem. A lot of buyers don't have the money to buy these kind of trucks nowadays. Of course, lots of beautiful paint finishing. I love the new style lights like this, and of course the black decal. But let's take a look at how much this unit's going for. Well, how much? What are we dealing with? The F-150. This one again is a Lariat, 3.5 liter power boost, full hybrid. So this one's basically an upscale with 10-speed automatic transmission, daytime running lights, frost, tailgate powered, remote tailgate, tow hooks, zone lighting. This actually has a lot of great features on here, but it stickers at $96,500. And obvious, with sales down about 9%, people are making a choice to buy or not to buy. In a lot of cases, it's not to buy. Many people have asked, why are they cranking up prices? Well, beats me, but I know one thing is Ford's trying to clean up their backyard with a lot of the recalls. We know these vehicles here. We have, of course, the Escape. Of course, we have the Bronco Sports, like these little rigs, and they have had a lot of issues with recalls. You know, that fuel injector issue, that's trying to get sorted out. They're trying to resolve that, as well as some bad transmissions. We know the 2014 F-150s are having that sudden deceleration issue, and a whole list of other problems that Ford's been dealing with. They're having to try to come up with that capital to try to pay for these recalls. So they're trying to come up with in creative ways, and some of which might be raising MSRP. But a big part of the problem over at Ford right now is going on is a lot of these Ford Lightnings like this, the electrified F-150, weren't selling very well. But now, coincidentally, in this last half of, or the first half of 2024, a lot of these trucks have been selling like hotcakes. Why? Because Ford's been offering up all kinds of incentives on the electrified market, getting people to market. They weren't selling, and they certainly don't sell on the used car market very well, hence the massive depreciation. But when you find incentives and Ford's literally almost giving away their brand new Ford F-150 Lightnings, a lot of people find it palatable to go out there and possibly put their money down on a vehicle that's heavily incentivized, cash back, interest rates that are more than agreeable. People are buying these. And that's why almost 80% increase in the sales of the F-150 Lightning have just occurred. Right there as well, we see Ford, they've been doing very, very well on their sales of fleets as well as commercial sales. That has been a big part of how they're generating their capital, so they can actually experiment. And Ford has been losing money on every single sale of their electric vehicles. There's another Lightning right there. Every one of these vehicles has promised to lose a whole pile of money. So then why would Ford continue to sell these? Because they sort of have to. They've tooled up for it. They know they have to stick with the plan. They know they have to look at the future, and the push is still on for electrified vehicle. Whether you like it or not, they have to have a somewhat of electrified vehicles available in their portfolio, and the Lightning seems to add to that. But the sad part is vehicles like the Ford Maverick, I can't even find anywhere on this lot right now because they literally sell out. And Ford has been selling each and every one, but that is also an equal disappointment because even in 2025, they're talking about huge increases in the base MSRP of every vehicle, from the Maverick to the F-150 as well as the Ranger. And here's another F-150 Lariat. We're seeing a lot of high trim level vehicles right here, but they're all selling, and they're trying to move away for some of the lower mid-level trim, the XLTs, the XLs. But this one here, of course, you do get a sunroof on top there. You get a leather interior, and it's heated and ventilated. You get the latest infotainment. It's a beautiful truck, absolutely. Again, painted handles, beautiful. More or less, again, a Lariat, but we're seeing it for $94,100. Not a cheap vehicle. Of course, these are Canadian prices, US substantially less, but they're still selling to a shrinking and shrinking, smaller and smaller pot of buyers who can actually afford these rising prices on these F-150s. So why does Ford keep raising their prices? We know the full-size Broncos, although they were hot initially, they're also not selling very well these days, and they're going to sit here for quite a long time. Full-size Expeditions, also a very expensive vehicle, not selling like hotcakes these days because they're full size but on steroids because much larger in charge. We also see more electric vehicles. The Mustang Mach-E right there, the E4, get the cool little handles, but these vehicles are not selling all that well. But the only way they are selling is when Ford decides to incentivize these, drop some big discounts off, then and only then are people stepping up to buy one of these Mustang Mach-E's or any of the other electric vehicles on the arsenal. So my personal experience is what I'm seeing Ford do is they're putting much more of these lower to mid-level trim vehicles out here. Obviously we have an F-150 XLT right here. Yes, you get the painted wheels or the glossy wheels, but look, you'll notice plastic mirrors, plastic parts. Sure, you get this is painted, but that's plastic. Of course, plastic here, you don't get a spray and liner, but you do get that sliding rear slider back there, more plastic. So it's a good mid-level, mid-trim in the FX4 off-road, but it's not a high level or a high specification of vehicle like the Lariat. The Lariat is certainly going for a little more money, and as a result they're harder to sell. But right here's another example. This one here is another XLT right there, and it's a power boost. But it doesn't even seem the amount of marketing is able to sell these vehicles, because this one here, it says new model right there. But it's not. This is a 2024, so there's nothing new about that. Then we have Lightnings, again, heavily incentivized, or they're not selling. Then we have more XLTs right there. And we even have another XLT right here. But here we have a very low trim level vehicle. Right here is an STX. Of course, you do get a different style of grille. You get the newer, updated, revised Ford logo on there. Similar rims, but they're more of a matte finish. You'll notice STX right there by F-150. This is a great little unit. It's a 2024, and you'll notice lots of plastic here, very low trim level, plastic along there. Hey, they give you this as plastic, but they're actually giving you a mat here, a mud guard, which is nice. And of course, no rear slider. You notice, you'll see in the XLT you get a slider. This one, no slider, no spray and liner. But if you need a basic F-150 to do the job, the STX might be your job. This one gets you 4x4. You still do get the crew cab here, but looking inside, you do get just fabric seats. Sure, you get the regular infotainment screen, which is nice, no sunroof. It's sort of a lower spec, there's no doubt, the STX. I've always liked the STX. It's just sort of like a cooler name. But more and more XLTs and STXs are showing up instead of the Lariats, because there's a perception when, as a buyer, you're out there walking around and you're looking at the stickers and you're browsing the classifieds and you're able to see the prices. At first glance, you might just look at the numbers, but it's not until you start digging deeper that you actually see what kind of specifications you get. And that's what they're doing, loading up the lots with more affordable, lower trim level vehicles, so you're just seeing the numbers. You're not necessarily seeing the full trim. Now they're able to bring in a lower trim level, bump up the MSRP. You come in, slide in next year thinking you're getting, hey, look, it's the same price, but wait a minute. Trim for trim, you're going to see a price increase, but it's all going to be deceiving. You're going to think, oh, last year I was looking at a Lariat and it was going for $94,000, but you roll in next year and all of a sudden that Lariat is now $107,000, and unfortunately now that XLT is up around 93, and now you think, hey, it's the same price, but it's all up here. But Ford's already openly admitted they're making the majority of their profits from the blue oval like this, which is their retail sales, which is actually a relatively small portion, but a much bigger portion are their commercial sales, their white vehicles, their vans, their big cube vehicles. Those are the vehicles that are making the majority of the salary or the capital for the organization. And as a result, between the commercial sales as well as the retail sales, that's where they're making the money. It's the Raptors of the world where they really put the markup and put the screws to the buyer. Even though it's a great looking vehicle, you've got all the flares, detail, all this goodness here, beautiful running gear, and all kinds of extra detail. The Raptor, the powerful engine, these are beautiful trucks. But these are the ones with the high trim levels that are making the big money for the company. So if you think the cost of living crisis was real before, it continues on and on and on. The real question is the price increases from these new low to mid-level spec vehicles, these trucks, these F-150s, are they going to exceed the standard garden variety core inflation rate? If so, then that just talks to the more greedflation. If it's less, well, it might be a little bit more of a bargaining chip for you to go down to the dealer and buy yourself a new truck, because most people, when they get raises at their companies, their jobs, they're not necessarily compensating totally for inflation, and cost of living increase doesn't necessarily match. At least if their wages follow suit with the increase in costs of some of these vehicles, like these full-size F-150s or Rams, or as well as any of the other vehicles like the GMCs. If the wages follow suit, then the cost of living crisis is bad, but at least it's holding stable. If these prices continue to climb, as I would actually expect them to exceed what the average income salary increases are looking like, then you're probably going to be in a place where you're further and further and further out of reach. And with all of that said, check it out. Cost of living crisis, it's real, it's happening, and it's impacting each and every one of us. Hope to see each and every one of you. See you real soon. Bye-bye.